This entire chapter gave me more of those. I guess I'd rather just go with really nice fan fiction vibes. That's like the most well way I can put it, while still not sounding like an insult, because it wasn't a bad chapter. Again, I get salty and I have to bring up the fact that I'm not insulting the chapter, because sometimes I get legitimately salty with something like Seven Deadly Sins, because I've talked about it before. I've been following the series since it came out, and I really enjoyed the first arc. I thought it was good. The second arc started really good, and then it kind of went downhill, similar to the third arc, the current arc. I think it was kind of like down, and then it went really high up, and then with the Maelstorosa stuff, and then I think it dropped off after that. My opinion, but whatever. Anyway, this chapter though, why I say really nice fan fiction is some of the parts. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. I like this that this is happening, but I don't think this other stuff makes sense. So we're now getting, apparently Zeldris this whole time is like been wanting to like seemingly switch sides, but we found out recently that he's always like super business orientated and about like following like the layout for the Demon Clan and whatnot. We know that he had he's got his vampire chick. But if he was wavering, and this was clearly Meliodas prior to him when he's talking in the flashback, this looks like him prior to like falling in love with Elizabeth, switching sides, leaving because he just is this like dead inside guy. And I think he's just like looking back, he says that Zeldris tried to talk to him multiple times after that, and it's like, oh, if that was the case, then why would he not want to switch after Meliodas straight up says like, I'm gonna abandon? But that's not the part that I have a problem with. That's not like whatever. There's thousands of years of their characters going back and forth we never really saw, so I can't like, oh, this was never brought up before. Like, okay, yeah, there's a ton of stuff between them that we don't know for how many centuries. There was also some really cool panels in general. Like, I really like that, like, okay, the Demon King is on his back. He's, like, laying in the water of the lake. You got a lightning all around him. I think it's really cool that you have, like, nature, like, rampaging around the battlefield. Well, even in scenes like this where they've been fighting, but you just have this, like, quiet moment. Meliodas is, like, with his thoughts. He's just approaching, his father. And then there's this really cool panel set where the Demon King isn't, like, getting up. It's, like, the darkness is, like, pulling him to his feet, which I think is really cool. The whole panel where it shows like, oh, my power level is increasing, I'm getting my true power back. I actually don't like him in his second set of armor. I liked the armor that he got when he was like in this form with like the cape that's on one side. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was interesting that like the Demon King, his design changes depending on like who he's taking over, because Meliodas had a different one when he took over his body. And now he's got this like cooler design. Well, he did, because he's seemingly going back to his older armor, maybe like a merging of his new armor and his old armor. I don't know. All I can say is like I like the previous one prior. That again, that's also just that's 100% opinion based, so I can't really complain about that. Or really, I don't know if anybody can validate my complaints about that, because again, 100% opinion based. But the rest of the chapter, I can really summarize it pretty quick, because like a lot of it was action based, and then like narrated emotional parts. And that's what I was talking about when I was saying like really good fan fiction and the way that this chapter felt, because like it's really just okay, cool, inner thoughts, some backstory, cool stuff, and then like action that doesn't really seem to hold weight, because it's like, okay, Meliodas is getting beaten up now from Demon King Zeldris as he's regaining his power, but he's like getting closer to his form. Whereas Meliodas, I'm getting beaten up by this version of him, and then he just activates his curse, like his demon mark, his whole ability, not his curse, his demon mark, the kind of like weird sun, like black sun on his forehead, and then he's more powerful than this current version of Zeldris, and he's like wrecking up on him. And obviously the Demon King is still regaining his power, but he's now in this state. Like prior, he was losing to Meliodas at his base form. Now Meliodas is still winning. He just had to go up to his like partial demon mark, but he still has like the normal like advanced demon mark when he's using like darkness in various ways, like we saw the first time he went into like berserk mode. Obviously not actual berserk mode, because his is like assault mode, but he hasn't gone into assault mode, and he hasn't gone into his Demon King mode. So like even though it's like, oh, the Demon King is getting stronger, it's like, okay, well, now Meliodas, like, even if he was losing for a second, he's back to just pummeling the Demon King, and Meliodas has 2, maybe 3 more power-ups up his sleeve, and I'm just like, unless the Supreme Goddess shows up to help the Demon King, I don't really feel like that threatened in this situation. I think that would be a much cooler. Legitimately, if the Supreme Goddess just showed up and joined the fight, I wouldn't question it. I'd just say, okay, cool. I'm not even going to ask why. I'm just going to let it happen. I'm just going to let it happen because at least it'll add tension. It'll add like a I don't want to say 2.0 sequel fight rather to the last time that they tried to fight their parents. I think that would just be pretty cool in general. But whatever. Meanwhile, we get back to, Zeldris having his, his illusion with, what's her name, Gelda, in his head, and that's, Gelda, and, it's just an illusion the Demon King pretty much put him in to kind of keep him under control, similar, to counteract the whole fact that, like, when Meliodas, he could still fight back when the Demon King had his body, so, he's like, okay, now I gotta keep his soul in check so he can't fight me on the inner level, and, I just have to deal with the outer level. It's okay, makes sense, that's fine. And then, like, the Demon King is, like, swelling up with his power. He looks like he's getting bigger, more, swelling up his magic in the darkness. But I don't really care that much about that. I expressed this throughout the review because I'm like, okay, yeah, Meliodas was losing for a second, but all he had to do, his, like, normal curse, I keep saying curse mark, his demon mark is, like, more powerful with it on than the Demon King with, like, because he had not a full one, but his was like that kind of like slightly progressed one where it's starting to spread. And Meliodas hasn't even done that. He hasn't done his like, I don't want to call it Berserk mode because it never had a name. You know, the one that he got during the tournament, like early on in the series, like we first saw like his demon stuff. And, it could like reattach his arms and he could use it for elongated attacks and stuff. And then he has Assault mode and then he has his Demon King mode. And so like, I'm like, I don't have the tension yet. Maybe in a couple chapters, like the Demon King will pull out some like special trump card he's been saving, or something like I talked about prior in a previous video. Like maybe he took Crisis from the original Sinner, and he'll combine it with the Ruler to do some OP like loop hacks, power boost, constant healing, and damaging himself at the same time. But that's not where I care about right now, because what I care about was when I talked about, okay, good fan fiction. You had some good action and stuff. You had some good backstory. I liked the last page, and that's why I'm using this. It's not the full page. It's not even the full panel. It's like a third of the 2 panels. And the reason I liked it is because Meliodas, for the most part in the series, Meliodas is like, I think the best way I'm going to get off describing without really sounding like I'm insulting him is how I feel a lot of the time about Urza from Fairy Tail. Not entire. I think her status is way overhyped in comparison to Meliodas. Like honestly, I need to do a video on like her win-loss record because she's actually not won nearly as many fights as I've seen people like flex her on. She's like, people like to say like, oh, she just goes in and wins every fight. She actually has lost a lot of fights. Like her first big fight, Jose, she lost. But Meliodas, like throughout the first arc, it was kind of back and forth, but then it's like, okay, yeah, he was losing on purpose for plot reasons. Well, not plot reasons, planning reasons. Like when he went against Gilthunder, it was part of the scheme. And then the 10 Commandments showed up, and he was getting outgunned. And then there was like parts where he was weaker and stronger. But for the most part, Meliodas has been a dominating powerhouse throughout the series. Like if you look at every fight he's been in the series as a whole, like there aren't many times where he's been at a disadvantage. And where I compare him with Urza's. Obviously, she doesn't have as merely like stomps as Meliodas has of just wrecking people and slaughtering his opponents, or her opponents. But between them, I really like her interactions with like Jalal and stuff that shows like her fragile side, because she's like a really powerful warrior woman, swordswoman. But like you put her in front of the dude she's in love with, and she becomes like this very like nervous schoolgirl almost. And with Meliodas, you get like some really good, like even though he's a powerhouse, we get a lot of like good stuff. Like I don't count like the stuff like, oh yeah, he's got a good relationship with his crew. A lot of main characters do. I like his relationship with Elizabeth, but we already know that. But with this, even though I don't have the most positive opinion on the current like way the plot's going, I liked that his worry about his brother is currently in the story. Like this panel, even though you see all these parts of Meliodas having this like raw savage like killer face throughout some of the arcs, and like his jokester self, or like his like serious side. I like this kind of like distraught, like rattled expression on his face, because it's like, yeah, he can beat him seemingly, but that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to defeat his father while not killing his brother, which I think is actually pretty cool because it adds it adds some extra depth to Meliodas. And even if I'm saying like, oh, I don't like power-wise like what they're doing with this character because they're just making him seem too strong, it's hurting tension, like I don't feel at the moment like there's a chance for Meliodas and Elizabeth to lose. But I'm on a combat standpoint, but on a personal, emotional standpoint, Meliodas could potentially, lose his own battle. Like even if he defeats the Demon King, saves Britannia and whatnot, he could lose his brother, and that's what he's in. Maybe not like overall main objective, but like it's like a side goal he really wants to get. It's like, oh, defeat this boss. Okay, I can do that. But it's like, okay, defeat this boss, and you get a bonus thing if you do this. And he's going for the bonus thing, and it's not just like a perk. It's like a very personal, important aspect to his life. Is his little brother. So that's good. I like that aspect of the chapter again. I'm hoping that there's going to be tension in the fight soon, because like it's important for there to at least be somewhat tension in the final boss fight. It's not this fight doesn't feel like with Acnologia where it was suddenly started to get rushed. I have my own theories about that. Not in this video. I don't need to off topic more with Fairy Tail in this fucking Seven Deadly Sins review. I don't want to completely deter away from the actual topic of this review, but. I'm hoping that the layout of this fight isn't just an emotional battle with Meliodas. It gets to the actual like final boss physical, like this is a difficult fight. We have to do X amount of things to overcome and defeat him. We'll see though. Maybe it will just be the overall theme of this fight. It's not a fight that Meliodas is in struggle of his strength, but it's the thing that his strength may or may not be able to achieve, and that's to save his brother. Other than that, drop a comment up below when you thought about this. There are some people that have a lot more positive outlook on this right now. Maybe it is like that. Maybe like the fight isn't supposed to be a fight of the Demon King is powerful. It's the Demon King that's holding Meliodas' brother hostage. He doesn't know how to defeat the Demon King while save his brother at the same time. I don't know, because I feel like if that was the case, like that his power level rising wouldn't really be a factor. But we'll see as the rest of the series goes. There's not much left. This is really the final battle. We've obviously got some side stuff with the Endura, Arthur, and Escanor. But this is the big conflict. We don't know if there's any plans for a sequel series or a spinoff or what's going on with Nakaba. As far as we know, this could be the big final battle. And I am intrigued to see how the series ends, because again, I've been following the series since Chapter 1 came out, and I want it to end on a good note. So, other than that, like I said, thumbs up the video, but friend the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.